I think I can share several. I've had plenty of opportunities to recognize my personal limitations. And while I really don't want to advertise that, I think there's something instructive, and maybe it'll help some of you. So one example, I was asked to set up a completely new office. We called it the Strategic Communications Office. I had been leading systems engineering, software assurance activities, and had some light engagement with people in education and outreach, legislative affairs, public affairs, had been recipient of some employee engagement activities, worked with our tool support team, and knew of our intern program. All of those functions were to be aggregated into this new Strategic Communications Office. And so I realized that I didn't have the expertise to figure out how they all connected and the synergy amongst them. So job one is recognize that I needed help. I had some limitations, so I consulted the experts. So the first set of experts were the current members of the team. I consider myself to be pretty good at strategic planning. I might be an expert at that. And so realizing how to pull teams together to have conversations about objectives and how we work together versus not, how pieces fit together is something I feel comfortable with. In this case, I had that conversation with members of the team initially, and then enlisted help of experts outside of the team. So reached out to Goddard Education Office for their expertise, reached out to headquarters, legislative affairs, to get additional insights. In doing that, I felt comfortable in working to build a plan that connected everyone, that showed some common objectives and the need for each of those pieces, those processes, and those experts in the team. So consult the experts, define a plan, get your feedback from the experts, define the roles clearly, showing that everyone is essential and necessary in order to meet the plan, and then measure progress, something you would do in any management activity. So that's one example. I actually led the administrative consolidation at NASA Langley. This is the secretarial and administrative expertise at our center. This consolidation activity has actually occurred at a number of centers, but I believe Langley was one of the first, if not the first. So I was selected to do this consolidation. To set some background, initially each of these experts were managed by their unique branch or organization that they supported. And so we wanted to make them their own branch so they got consistent management, consistent guidance, consistent ratings, and consistent grades as far as seniority levels. So it was a major initiative. I seldom had the advantage of a dedicated administrative expert in my career, but I knew a little bit about what they did, but not how they did it, not expectations, timing, structure, formats, or legal ramifications. So I had some learning to do. So again, consulted the experts. And there were a number of experts. There were the people who thought about this before me, before I got handed the job to actually execute. So they did some studies. I leveraged all that. I actually met with every single member of the administrative team and asked them about their jobs and explained what my role was to do, to bring them together, to create opportunities for them, and to create more fairness. The other experts I consulted were those people who had worked on this previously as far as doing the studies. And also I realized that in this particular case, the members of the administrative teams had far more seniority than me and far more comfort in their existing role. And so change was very scary. It was a perception, but I needed data to back it up. So in this case, one of the experts that I consulted was an organizational development expert who led all of us through a number of exercises to understand our change preference indicators. So some people are welcoming change, some people are reluctant to change, and some people are somewhere in the middle. And it depends on the change where you might fall. But it really helped us devise a plan to engage everyone in different indicator status. So if you were not comfortable with change, we wanted to engage you in the process, put you on teams. We wanted to over-communicate from one perspective, but adequately communicate from another perspective. There was not too much information that could be shared. For people who welcome change, are enthusiastic, and want to race down the road in front of us, we had to be very thoughtful and communicate very specifically about our next steps and the timing of those next steps to keep everyone moving at the same pace. And so we had regular meetings with the entire team to talk about our progress, our next steps, how we were going to celebrate when we did each of these things. So some of our activities were fun. They were really network building, relationship building, trust building, and others were a little bit more serious. But they helped us figure out how to work together as a team, whether we embrace change or not. Something that I would not have known to do had I not recognized my limitation, once again, and consulted some experts. I followed the same strategy, though. I defined a plan, consulted experts, got feedback from the experts, created buy-in using the organizational development expertise and the plans they helped me set up, and then executed the plan. In this case, we got great feedback, both in terms of the members of the community. Our administrative experts actually thought there was more buildup than the actual change required, right? They generated some of the concerns that in the end seemed to be unwarranted. And the team is still working well. It's proven to be an effective change, and consistent implementation across the center is benefiting not just the administrative expertise, but the organizations they serve. From my perspective, most people think that recognizing personal limitations is probably a weakness. But I think, in fact, it identifies areas for growth and excellence, and leveraging skills amongst your community, amongst your team, amongst your agency, recognizing those skills, implementing them, and in the end, everybody gets great feedback, right? Experts like feedback on their contributions. You get good success because you brought the right people to the table. I think some other thoughts maybe that are relevant here. It's very easy for most of us to think what worked well in the past will work again. I've managed programs. I've managed projects. I've been successful, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. And that may work. It may work well, maybe more so on the technical and programmatic side, where sometimes that will fall short, as I have learned, is on the soft side of things, the people, the most important part of the equation. Every person is unique and different. Every person is valuable and interacts in a different way. And so the value of things like little things, big things, whether someone is an extrovert to an introvert to an ambivert, to crucial conversations, even if someone is an excellent performer, a crucial conversation about how a little tweak could have bigger benefits. It's the people side of things and the comfort of knowing that that's going to change every single time with every single team, which requires me to challenge myself and challenge my team. I think maybe that's not often recognized by folks. I have to say that early on in my career, I was known as the person who volunteered, and volunteered a lot. Part of that was to grow skills, grow my network, learn new things. But But the flip side of that is it challenged me every time because there was always something in the new experience where I was not the expert and I had limitations. So I may have an interest, but I needed some help along the way. So I created a lot of opportunities for myself, not really realizing that's what I was doing early in my career. Since then, I've continued to leverage my network, leverage experts, work with diverse teams, in fact, build diverse teams, people who have different experience bases, different experiences, period, people who look different, who talk different. It doesn't matter. Diversity, I think, brings value. In one particular case, I was building a team and I needed experts, but I wanted something to challenge all of us. And so one of the little things I did was ask that I would get a junior person, someone who wasn't going to be an expert. And the questions that individual asked us challenged us all for the good. That person became our living knowledge of everything we had done and why. The unintended benefit of that was amazing. So I offer that to you as a suggestion on how to continue to recognize your own limitations and challenging yourself. So I have to say another important element in my development and recognizing my limitations was consistently asking for input and feedback from those who I engage with, from my managers, from their managers, from my team, from my direct reports, all levels, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in large group settings, just about the effectiveness of facilitating or clarity of objectives, soliciting feedback, specifically soliciting constructive feedback too. It's easy to get affirmation and it's pleasant to get, but unfortunately I think, and that's easy to give. Unfortunately I think constructive feedback is harder to give and isn't given as often, but it's the most useful as far as self-growth and development and learning how to work with other individuals who may have different preferences. So I always solicit input feedback and specifically ask if there are any constructive comments, even if they're small, so that I can just polish that one area just a bit to see if there are some improvements. In other cases, feedback isn't one-on-one. Although I do meet with team members monthly, at least, to provide and receive direct feedback. The other thing that I've done is virtual assessments, the 360 assessments, asking people all around me for their view of how I'm performing. So I have to say, when I look at this, there are so many things that I have done and continue to do to build my proficiency. So to summarize, I volunteered a lot. I still volunteer on occasion, and it's always a growing experience. I continue to leverage experts internally and externally. I always look forward to working with diverse teams and building them when I have the chance. I ask for input and feedback in whatever way I can get it, and certainly getting that one-on-one, the people you work closest with, has the biggest bang, but it's valuable from anyone you can get it from. Well, I have some advice for project managers who might aspire to be program managers. You can decide whether it's good advice or not. I think that in addition to continually challenging yourself to not only meet clear objectives and expectations, but to challenge yourself to grow is generically good advice for anybody. I will say from a program manager perspective, if you're not yet comfortable with working at a higher level of detail, you need to find a way to get comfortable, solving bigger problems, but from a larger perspective, looking across multiple projects to come up with programmatic solutions. Sometimes that is inherently easy, depending on the particular challenge, but sometimes it's incredibly difficult to, especially if you've come up in a very detailed, focused way, working on one project and knowing it from nuts and bolts to the larger picture. You need to raise your perspective up to a larger perspective and do deep dives, shallower than you used to, but when necessary, so that you can inform the larger view, which is a number of projects or activities that make up your program.